I think it won't be on it to be the introduction. All right. So here we're going to pick it up with marriage, first of all, with God's marriage to Jerusalem. Now, many people are kind of shocked to find out that Jerusalem doesn't start out to be the city of peace that it gets called under David. All right. Jerusalem begins its existence as from a group of people known as the Jebusites. It's called Jebus. All right, and it's their capital city. All right, and until David conquers it, whatever date it was that David conquered, I can't remember off the top of my head. That it isn't known as Jerusalem until then. It's known as Jebus. Listen to what God says about this spot, though. Okay, now this is because it's already been founded as Jebus, and this is what he says about it when he wants to marry it. He says, "Now, when I passed by thee, I looked upon thee. Behold, thy time was the time of love, and I spread my skirt over thee, and covered thy nakedness." All right. That's a biblical figure of speech that means that a man married a woman, all right? When a man stops and spreads his skirt and covers the nakedness of a woman, they're both under their naked, right? Right? I mean, I think I just draw the picture, all right? And that's what constitutes the marriage, right there. When he stopped, he spread his skirt, he covered Jerusalem and called her his wife. So what he says, "Yea, I swear unto thee and entered into a covenant with thee and said, the Lord God and thou becamest mine." All right, so that's the marriage of Jerusalem, right? Well, now I told you he's also divorced. So I want you to listen to the divorce. Now, this is in Jeremiah chapter 3, verse 6, 7, 8, and 9 are what we're going to cover, just a few verses there. Well, listen to this. In Jeremiah 3, verse 6, "The Lord said also unto me in the days of Josiah the king, Hast thou seen that which backsliding Israel hath done? She is gone up upon every high mountain and under every green tree, and there hath played the harlot." All right, this evergreen tree, this is grove worship. This is something that's outlawed in God's law. All right, and on every high mountain. Played the harlot there. We're talking about spiritual adultery, all right, or idolatry. So it says in 7, "And I said, after she had done all these things, Turn thou unto me, but she returned not. And her treacherous sister Judah saw it. And I saw, when for all the cause where backsliding Israel committed adultery, I had put her away and gave her a bill of divorce." All right, this right here fulfills the law about divorce. On divorce, you get a written document that says you're split up, right? All right, this is exactly what's going on here. "Yet her treacherous sister Judah feared not, but went and played the harlot also. And it came to pass through the likeness of her whoredom, that she defiled the land and committed adultery with stones and with stocks." All right. So here, what I want you to really get out of this, all right, is that the adultery that is being spoken of here is idolatry. Okay, it is spiritual fornication that's being discussed, which is adultery, spiritual adultery in God's eyes. Okay, cheating on him just like a wife. That's why he uses it, so you can understand the emotion that he feels about this. And that's very important. So there you go. You have one of the marriages and 2 divorces right there. All right? That's 3 women that God has been married to. And the only one that he's still married to is Jerusalem. All right? And that should emphasize the importance of the Christian covenant then. All right? Because this is Old Testament stuff. Right here what we're talking about. Back in Jeremiah, he divorced them way too long ago. Remember what the law is about going back to somebody that you divorced? All right, and except under the Christian covenant, it wouldn't be allowed under the Old Testament law. All right, so this says a lot, and that shows you the importance then of the New Testament covenant with Christ, because that's how you get back to the marriage, is what we're talking about. All right. All right, with all that being in mind, I want you to go to Revelation chapter 21:9 now. Now let's look at this bride. All right, because that was one of the ones that we had. That Steve there read, right? 21:9 is where we're going to pick it up. This is a little bit rough because I'm still working on it. But either way, it doesn't matter. All right, so here we pick it up with a bride. Listen to what it says. "And there came unto me one of the 7 angels, which had the 7 vials full of the 7 last plagues. One of the 7 angels that John saw. And talked with me, saying, Come hither, and I'll show thee the bride, the Lamb's wife. So we're back on the subject then, the same subject, right? All right, verse 10. And he carried me away in the spirit to a great high mountain and showed me a great city, holy Jerusalem, descending out of heaven. All right. Here's where the spiritual tech comes in. We're talking about a flying city. All right. This isn't something that's been born here on earth. This is something that's been hatched wherever God is and is coming to this planet. And listen to what it says about it, right? Verse 11, having the glory of God, and her light was like unto a stone most precious, even like a jasper stone, clear as crystal. All right, now here in this case, this term jasper stone, I don't think it should have been translated to the stone, and this is why. Listen to what it says. Jasper in your Greek index is 2393. All right, it's Eospis. All right, and it comes from a Hebrew word. It's actually a Greek word. It means jasper or gem. But you can see and you can compare it to the Hebrew index to 3471. And 3471 is Yasapha, all right, and it means to polish. All right, so hold on to this. Let's go back and listen to what it says then. Verse 11, having the glory of God, and her light was like unto a stone most precious, even like, here's jasper, a highly polished stone, clear as crystal. Now, the reason John's using stone here is because that's the most permanent thing this guy can come up with. This is guy something, he's exiled on Patmos at this point. All right? And to them, stone, they've seen the Egyptian pyramids, they've seen all these things made of stone, and they are permanent and they stay forever, and that's the point. Because it's probably not a stone that this thing is made out of. All right? Now, let's flip on down to verse 15 and what it says. We're going to skip a few verses. All right? And he talked with me, this angel, and talked with me and had a golden reed to measure the city and the gates thereof and the wall thereof. Verse 16, and the city lieth four square. Four square means it's a square. It's equal on all four sides. Okay? And the length is as large as the breadth. And he measured the city with the reed, 12,000 furlongs. That's 1,500 miles. It's big. That's really big. All right? Now listen to this. And the length and the breadth and the height are equal. And that's a cube. A 1,500 mile cube. And at some point in our future, to view with your eyes, if you make it past Judgment Day, you are going to see this thing coming. You're going to stand there and you're going to see it happen. All right? I was telling my dad about this, and he goes, "No, you got to check your numbers because something's got to be wrong. Because 1,500 mile cube is something that size would affect the way that the planet spins. It would give it a wobble." I was like, "Well, yeah, I know, but it already has a wobble. That's why we have this precessional wobble. That's why when you look at cave art from way back, several thousand years, they've drawn these stars, but the Big Dipper and the Little Dipper, they're kind of bent the wrong way. And early on, we thought that this was they're just bad artists. But with the advent of some computers and a little bit of astronomy, you can now put it in and tell about that you turned it back that they were representing what they were seeing very accurately. Is that the sky has changed over time, and that's that precessional wobble that we have. It is my opinion that when this thing hits the Earth, it straightens that back out. Because at one point in the Earth's history, we had a position where the poles were tropics. Dinosaurs roamed freely from end to end on the planet. Something gave it a wobble and screwed it all up, though. And if you've studied with me, you know that was the destruction of the first heaven and earth age probably what caused that. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go on YouTube, My Little Bible Study. It's my channel that I started. And you want to check out the first two lectures of the book of Genesis. Or you guys got your own tab up there on it. It's called HHM, My Little Bible Study. Everything, including tonight, that's taught here is on that. And that'll get you caught up on some of it because we covered it here before. That's one of the reasons I like recording it, so when we have new people, I don't have to go back continually. So that's up to you to catch up. If you're interested, please, it's all there. Please use it freely. But nonetheless, here, so it's a big cube, 17. And he measured the wall thereof 140 and 4 cubits according to the measure of a man, that is of an angel. We've talked about this before. We know that's why, because we're made in that image, and the cubit's going to be the same. All right? That's 216 feet tall. That's a big wall. All right, now, at this point, we're not going to talk about this, but in those gates, each gate has each one of these walls has several gates in it. All right, do you know what these gates are named after? Anybody remember? The tribes of Israel themselves, right? It's Dan and Benjamin and Joseph and all those tribes. All right, and we're going to talk a little bit more about them in just a minute. All right, so here we go. We got that. Now listen to what it says. Last verse, 18. And the building and the walls, however, were made of jasper or clear and shiny, and the city was pure gold, likened to pure glass, or likened to clear glass, which just is a nice, pretty way of saying pure. Okay. All right, so there you go. There you got the New Jerusalem coming. This is one of God's wives. All right, and he's talking about here because he loves Jerusalem from way back. All right, and there's a New Jerusalem that's coming, and it's a monster of a city. All right, well, if there's one city, that's only one. It makes me wonder there's probably more. All right, so I wonder what else you're going to be flying around in the air. All right, now that was in the third heaven and earth age. Is there anything that anybody can think of? Anybody in all their biblical stuff hear anything weird flying around in the Bible? Surely somebody has. Ever heard of Ezekiel?
Chariot of fire.
Yeah, okay, we're getting there, right? All right, let's move into the next one then. We're going to look at another example of weird things flying around in the sky in the Bible. All right? Now, the easiest way for you to find almost all of them is cue in on the word whirlwinds. All right? I'll give you some numbers because I just happen to write them down. All right, King James Version, search results for whirlwind, you get 25 verses found with 27 matches. It means it's used at least twice in a couple of verses. All right? Out of that, let me go to the breakdown here real quick. Out of that, you have a couple in 2 Kings. All right, you have a couple mentions in the book of Job, Proverbs, Isaiah, Jeremiah, of course, Ezekiel, Daniel. All right, now here from Hosea, Amos, Nahum, Habakkuk, Zechariah, those are all minor prophets. All right, now if you know anything about the minor prophets, you know that those are all prophecies that are going to come to fulfillment in front of you. All right, so that means whatever the whirlwinds are, it becomes very important that you understand in your mind because you're going to see this stuff with your own eyes. All right, I cannot emphasize that enough. This just isn't some spiritual voodoo. This is some stuff you're going to see. All right? Now, so that's all the mentions, all right? Now, two of the places that I think are really important, one is Job, or two of them are in Job. Job chapter 38, verse 1, and 40, verse 6. All right? If you studied with me before, you know that Job 38, we were talking about all that cool stuff about how God put a magnetic field on the planet. All right, remember all that stuff? Job 40, that's where we hit Behemoth, right? Now behold Behemoth. Remember the guy with the tail? All right, if you don't know what I'm talking about, it's all online. All right, you catch up. All right, Job chapter 38, verse 1. And the Lord said unto Job, out of the whirlwind and said, all right, speaking to Job out of a whirlwind. 40, verse 6, and the Lord answered unto Job out of the whirlwind and said, all right. But the one where you're going to start finding out what you're really talking about begins in 2 Kings. We're going to look at a few verses here in 2 Kings. 2 Kings chapter 2, verse 9 is what I'm trying to say. All right, this is what it says. And it came to pass, when they were gone over, that Elijah said unto Elijah, ask what shall I do for thee before I be taken away from thee? And Elijah said, I pray thee, let a double portion of thy spirit be upon me. All right. Now, if you go ahead and follow this up, you find out that Elijah works exactly twice as many miracles as Elijah. All right, so he got it. He got what he asked for, right? Listen to what it says. Verse 10, and he said, thou hast asked a hard thing. Nevertheless, if thou see me when I am taken from thee, it shall be so unto thee, and if not, it shall not be so. Real simple guidelines, right? That's what it says in verse 11. And it came to pass, as they still went on and talked, that behold, there appeared a chariot of fire and horses of fire, and parted them both asunder, and Elijah went up by whirlwind into heaven. All right, so here we have spiritual chariots and spiritual horses. All right, Where other book do you hear about spiritual horses? Book of Revelations. That's exactly right. All right, the first horseman of the apocalypse is that first white horse we talked about, that great deceiver. All right, the one that looks has a Shekinah glory, but it's made toxon is the Greek word. All right, same place we get the word toxic from, or intoxication. All right, and what it means in Greek is a cheap fabric imitation. That's what it means in Greek. But he's the first spiritual white horse that you've got to deal with. All right, go read chapter 19. That's the real white horse. All right, he gets 3 more horses accompanying him. That's a lot of spiritual fire right there. All right, so hang on. Because now we're going to really get down to where the learning part goes. All right? Go ahead and flip over to the infamous Ezekiel chapter 1. We're going to be in verse 1. All right. Now, I'm going to warn you here. All right? You have a lot of things going on in this chapter. For Ezekiel, this guy's a BC man. He has no vocabulary to describe the things that he's going to experience, first of all. I mean, none. It's the only thing, the most advanced thing this guy's ever seen is a chariot. All right, and that would have been the equivalent to a tank to us. Okay, I mean, imagine that, being a foot soldier against a chariot with whirling birds and all armored up and bowmen. I mean, that's a pretty tough that's a pretty little tough war to hustle with when you're going against stuff like that. All right, so let's just go with what we see here. But what I did want to warn you about is you're going to be thrown in some symbology with some things that you're seeing. All right? And I'm going to help you distinguish between the two as we go through it. All right? Because this is what messes up. This is where you get a lot of stuff about angels having wings and all these kind of things. Right? Come out of Ezekiel chapter 1. All right? And most of those are taught in churches because of weakness in the Old Testament. Let's just call it what it is. All right? And we're going to deal with that tonight. Listen. Ezekiel chapter 1, verse 1. And it came to pass in the 13th year, the 14th month, of the 15th day of the month, as I was among the captives in the river Chebar, that the heavens were opened and I saw visions of God. This word Chebar, in your Strong's is 3529 in your Hebrew index. And it just means like a length of time. If you remember, they were sentenced to Babylon. They were going to Babylon for a specific amount of time, and that's all that really is saying. The name of the river is just saying this, that length of time. But it's there where Ezekiel, this priest, he has these visions, right? Listen to verse 2. And in the 5th day of the month, which was the 5th year of King Joachim's captivity, right? That means they're in Babylon. Tells you how long they'd been there. That the word of the Lord came expressly into Ezekiel the priest, the son of Bozai, in the land of the Chaldeans by the river Chebar, and the hand of the Lord was upon him. All right, so verse 4. Well, this is where it starts to get good. And I looked, and behold, a whirlwind came out of the north, a great cloud, a fire enfolding itself, and brightness was round about it, and out of the midst thereof as the color of amber, and out of the midst of the fire. Okay, let's break this down because this is not translated real good. First of all, again, we're dealing with Elijah's whirlwind again. All right? That was the thing he said. Look and behold, a whirlwind came out of the north, a great cloud of fire enfolding itself. Now, to Ezekiel has no idea what this is, but every one of us has seen something in the atmosphere here. All right? Every one of us, whether it's a fallen star, whether it's SpaceX bringing back another load of astronauts, all right, whether it's Soyuz coming back from the International Space Station, or there's debris hitting the atmosphere, we've all seen what that looks like. Something comes in fast at orbital velocities, it heats up, and it is a giant fire unfolding itself. All right, but the thing that I really want to point out to you is these terms color and amber, because neither one of those words actually exist in Hebrew. Okay, listen to what this says for real. All right, color in your Strong's is 5869, all right, and it's eigen, all right? And in all ancient languages, it has kind of this symbol, and it's almost always the same thing. It's a circle with a dot in it. It's where our word O comes from. All right? It always means the same thing. It either means go to a certain place and look and see what you see, or look with your eye. All right? And that's all it means. It's not color. It means I saw with my eye. All right? The next problem that we're going to have to deal with is amber. Oh, hold on, here I have some mess ups here because. Go ahead.
In the Bible, it's a circle with a dot.
In most ancient languages, it's a circle with a dot. It means the same thing as aeon. It means I saw with my eye or go and look. All right. Now, but where the next word is where you're going to get some little bumfuzzlery going on. All right. I have graphics that are in the wrong spot, and so I'm having to move around as we talk because I wasn't prepared to do this tonight. All right, but we're going to pull for it anyway. All right. The next word is amber, and it's amber 2830. All right, and it's kashmel, and what it means properly, bronze or a polished spectrum metal. Okay, so we got two bad translations. One is color, which means the eye. The other one is amber, which means something metallic. All right, so get this, what Ezekiel's telling you. He's saying he's standing there on the river Chebar, and the heavens open up, and something comes screaming in hot and fast. All right, you get me? You get what? Now, to imagine being poor Ezekiel, if you saw that, it would make you tinkle just a little bit. Could you imagine how poor Ezekiel has to feel? You have at least some kind of analogy to compare this stuff with. Ezekiel has to be standing there petrified. Fear can be the only thing that you can see streaming through this man at this point. Scared to death. That's why when people say things about God like, oh, I was talking to God this morning, he told me to park my car over here or there or whatever, kind of makes me go, man, ask Ezekiel if that's how he felt. Or John, even, in the Isle of Patmos. But nonetheless, that's what Ezekiel's telling you. I saw with my eyes something metallic and it came in hot. So let's continue with the description. Verse 5. And also, make sure I'm in my right spot since all my graphics are all out of whack. Let me take care of this. You'll see them here in just a minute. All right. But this is not how it was supposed to go down, like I said. But nonetheless, all right, I got it straightened out. We're in verse 5, right? And also out of the midst thereof came the likeness of 4 living creatures, and this was their appearance. They had the likeness of a man. They had the likeness of a man. Don't let that slip out of your mind. What does that mean? It means it looked like a human. You had a head and shoulders and arms and legs. Right? Because we're going to get introduced to some faces here that causes everybody to lose what's going on. But he says right there, it's the likeness of a man that he sees. Listen to what he says about this. And everyone had 4 faces, and everyone had 4 wings. All right? And their feet were straight feet, and the soles of their feet were like the soles of a calf's foot, and they sparkled like the color of burnished brass. All right? Looks like a man. Folds of struck. Let's think about this. Straight feet. It doesn't have a joint. Doesn't walk. Right? It has a foot, looks like a calf's foot, on a leg that doesn't bend. So that means it just sits down right on top of it. Okay? Just follow me. This will all solidify real good here in just a minute. All right? Verse 8. And they had the hands of the man under their wings on their 4 sides, and they 4 had their faces and their wings. All right. Ezekiel can't explain why, but he sees this form that looks like a man, and the man's hands are under the wings. The only thing he's saying, I don't know what he's doing, but whatever he's doing with his hands is what's making this thing fly. Okay? Now you got me? All right? And their wings, listen to this, and their wings were joined one to another, and they turned not when they went, and went every one straight forward. All right? So far, so good. As for the likeness of their faces, they 4 had the face of a man, and the face of a lion on the right side, and they 4 had the face of an ox, and on the left side, and they 4 had the face of an eagle. These are your 4 faces of the cherubims. All right? In Hebrew or Greek, these are called zoe or zoom, just depending on whatever language you're working in. All right? And they're always described the same way with those 4 faces. All right, but I'm going to show you what they are. Here, let me get this all together here. Okay. Let's see. Right here. I'm going to explain this Sometimes the picture really does a lot more than all the words. All right. That's probably my kids what it sounded like. All right. Now, when Israel in the wilderness camped, they had a specific way that they set up their camp. Okay, here's depicted. You see this tent with this big wall. Well, you've heard me talk about the temple before, right? Well, this is the original one. This is a mock-up of the one that's in the wilderness. All right? You had the outer court, and then the inner court, and then the inner sanctum on this side. Well, here you see the presence of God, and there with the Ark of the Covenant. And you see that Israel has an encampment that's very distinct all the way around the Ark of the Covenant. All right? Now, hold on to that, because I'm going to show you another one now. Now, this is one that's be a little bit harder, but I think you'll be able to understand. All right, man, ox, eagle, and lion. These are the symbols that these people camped under when they were camped. All right, Dan is a camp to the north. There's 4 camps. They're named after major tribes. You got camp of Dan, the camp of Ephraim, the camp of Reuben, and the camp of Judah. All right. Just like those gates that we were talking about in New Jerusalem, each one of them has a gate in that outer wall, and each one of them tells where each one of them were camped. Dan was camped to the north. Right? He's camped under the standard of the eagle because that was his standard. And the tribes of Dan, Asher, and Naphtali were camped north of the Ark of the Covenant inside of the temple. All right? Ephraim is they said to the left, right, was what? Was the ox. When take to the left or to the west, all right, you have the camp of Ephraim, the ox was their symbol. All right, so you following me so far? All right, Reuben's symbol was man. All right, and under his camp was Reuben, Simeon, and Gad. All right, now remember the lion was to the left, right, or to the right. I'm sorry. Well, that would be to the east, all right? And that's where the camp of Judah was, and their standard was a lion. Now, that should sound familiar to everybody. The Lion of the tribe of Judah. That's one of Christ's names, all right? Why? Because his tribe, Judah, was camped under that standard in the encampment. Okay, now here on the inner side, you have another tribe. It's Levi. All right, you have Merari, Gershon, and Kohath, and that's the 3 major tribes of the last tribe of Levites. All right, and they worked in the inner sanctum. Okay, so you see here, these symbols are there in the book of Ezekiel. They're still the same thing that they were way back here in Numbers chapter 2. They're still the standards. Hold on, boys. All right, they're still the same thing that they were way back in the day. Son, that's enough. Eli, that's enough. Thank you. Get. Yeah, it's autism. That's his way of answering everything. His teachers love him when he does it. Anyway. Okay, but nonetheless, those same faces that you saw in Ezekiel are still these same standards of these people. All right, they're called the cherubims in the house of Israel. All right? So you can't make more out of the faces than what they are. Remember, they had the form of a man. This is the reason why I wanted to draw that out. Looks like a man, but they bear the standards of Israel. Okay, so they're still just symbols. It's not you'll see a lot of pulpits that'll build you a picture of this crazy thing with 4 heads that looks every direction. No. All right? Those faces are always the same thing, and they're always symbolic. That's all they are. So when you can apply this in the most direct thing is they're looking at maybe an insignia, okay, with a man, an ox, an eagle, and lion. They all 4 look the same. They all 4 have the same faces, okay? That's all it's saying to you. Now, let me get this all out of the way here so I can go back to, because we ain't quite done with this
So
yet.
if they all 4 have the same faces, they all have the same meaning, right?
They have the same meaning. They're saying they're one of the 4 cherubims. That's all it means, all right? But they look like a man. They have the form of a man. They have all 4 the same faces. All right, now, let's deal with this now. All right, so now you're starting to see what we're talking about here with Ezekiel. Now listen to this. Let's see, where was I? Anybody know where I was when I quit? When I start hands, there's hands, there we go. Ox, eagle, and lion. All right, now. And now let's go a little bit farther because I want to show you this. Verse 11, thus were their faces and their wings were stretched upward 2 wings of every one were joined one to another, and 2 covered their bodies, and they went every one straight forward. Whither the Spirit was to go, they went, and they turned not when they went again. All right, so boom, just gone. All right, think about what he just said. Has 4 wings. We know the faces are symbols. We know he's in the air. All right, 2 wings are joined, 4 wings. 2 are joined together to extend down along their bodies. All right, let's see what this is. All right, see what this is? Okay, this is exactly what Ezekiel's talking about. Not this particularly. All right, we're talking about control surfaces that are designed for atmospheric flight. Each one has 2 wings that are joined together and 2 wings that extend down along their sides. Take another look at it. Something like that. All right. It has a leg that has no joints. It has a pad for a foot. It doesn't walk anywhere. Okay. See, hang on to me. Stand there. Told you it's supposed to be fun. I see a lot of people haven't breathed in just a minute. All right. All right. Now, like I said, I'm not saying that that was our stealth fighter is what that was. All right. All right. But whatever that thing is that Ezekiel's seeing makes our stealth fighter look like a paper airplane. Okay. Now hang on to it. All right. Listen to what it says. And as for the likeness of the living creature, their appearance was like burning coals of fire. So that form that they were talking about, when he looks at it, buddy, we've talked about this before in the spiritual body, right? All right? Burning coals of fire, and the likeness of the appearance of lamps. And it went up and down among the living creatures, and the fire was bright, and out of the fire went forth lightning. All right? We have some kind of an electromagnetic discharge. All right? So that's indicating a power source that's bleeding off energy. All right? Something humans can't design. This is designed on another level with a mind that we can't even comprehend. All right? Now, to kind of emphasize this, what I want to try and do is I want to take verse 10 completely out of this and listen to the description. Verse 10 was when we were talking about the faces. All right, so I want to remove the symbol so you can understand what the vehicle actually looks like. So we're just going to skip to chapter 10 since we've said, or verse 10 since we've already covered it. And listen to what it says. Starting in verse 5. And also out of the midst thereof came the likeness of 4 living creatures, and this was their appearance. They had they had the likeness of a man. And every one had 4 faces and their 4 wings, and their feet were straight feet. And the soles of their feet were like the soles of a calf's foot, and they sparkled like the color of burnished brass. That is highly polished spectrum metal. Okay? And they had the hands of the men under the wings on their 4 sides. And they had their 4 faces on their wings. And their wings were joined one to another, and they turned not when they went, and they went every one straight forward. Now skip 10 and go to 11. Thus were their faces and their wings were stretched upward. 2 wings of every one were joined one to another, and 2 covered their bodies, and they went every one straight forward. Whether the Spirit was to go, they went, and they turned not when they went. All right, so there's your description then of one of the things that Ezekiel saw. Well, guess what? He's not done. All right, now listen. Because here, starting in verse 5, we're talking about a different vehicle. Okay? Everybody with me so far?
Oh, yeah.
All right. I'm trying to go pretty slow because I know this makes people kind of nervous sometimes. All right. But that's one.
You're talking about somebody from biblical times who had never seen anything greater than a chariot or a horse
Right.
or a camel.
Right. That's why he uses chariots of fire in Isaiah, because that was the top line, top machine that they knew.
Exactly.
Right.
You know,
Right. And he's using those because that's, to him, that's the ultimate in power.
right.
Right. And because he just lacks a word, UFO.
Right.
Let's just call it what it is, what we're talking about, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, don't let that go in your mind, think little green men, all right? Because this has nothing to do with little green men. All right, this all comes from first heaven and earth age, and is brought into this heaven and earth age. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, well, you really need those first 2 chapters, or first 2 lectures of Genesis. All right. Okay, now listen to what it says in verse 15. Now, as I beheld the living creatures, those four with those wings, right? The living creatures, behold, one wheel upon the earth by the living creatures with their four faces. So here we got something new going down, right? Right? Verse 16, and the appearance of the wheels and their work was like the color of beryl, and they four had one likeness, and their appearance and their work was as a wheel in the middle of the wheel. All right. So what we have here, we're talking about structural elements within something that's circular, right? That Ezekiel refers to as a whirlwind. Why? Because it's spinning. All right? Listen to what it says. Verse 16. Oh, no, that's what I was on 7. And they went upon their four sides, and they turned not when they went. Now, often people read over this, right? But this is very key. They went about, okay, how does a wheel go about its work? Like this. Like this. These wheels go about their work on their side. Okay? You get what he's saying? Saying it's a wheel, it's round, it looks like a wheel within the middle of it, but they go about their work on their side, not like a wheel does going down the road. Right? Remember, right, he's just trying to describe what he's saying to you in terms of the things that he understands. Alright? Well, listen to what it says. And they turned not when, verse 18, and their rings were so high that they were dreadful, and the rings were full of eyes around about the four. Okay, here we go. Rings. This rings, when he says rings, he means heights. He goes, because remember, he's standing there, this thing comes screaming in, pulls right up to him and stops, and he's standing there with his mouth open, peeing down his leg, looking up at this thing. Which is the same thing any of us would do. Before you think I'm mocking Ezekiel, I even know about it, and if I saw one, I'm going to fall dead probably. My heart just stopped. I mean, that's how awe-inspiring these things from the spiritual realm really are. All right? Listen to this. So their heights, the rings are so high they're dreadful. When he stands here, he looks up there, it's so high up there, it scares him. That's all he's trying to say. All right? What about these and the rings were full of eyes round about the four. What do you think he could be talking about?
There's fire coming out the jet.
Oh, well, something. We're getting close. That's coming up next. That or windows.
Yeah.
All right. Now think about the eyes round about. He's saying he can see people in it. He's already described them. And he said all the way around this thing, they're looking out of it. He can see in it. That's how come he knows that the man's hands are under the wings. Whatever he's doing with his hand, making this thing fly. Or at least the other four. All right. So you get poor Ezekiel. Boy, he's doing a good job. He's hammering it. He's actually hammering it with lots of really good information. All right. And we get all turned around because of faces. All right. Because those faces mess people up because of those wings, and that's where everybody gets a little fat cherubim baby. All right. Which, as you can tell, has absolutely nothing to do with actually here in Ezekiel where you're talking about cherubims. All right. So, you got eyes, they're full of eyes round about. He can go all the way around that sucker. You can see in it. All right. He's looking and he's seeing, he's describing and reporting to you the things that he sees. Verse 19. And when the living, oh, I love this. This is just so funny. But when the living creatures went, the wheels went with them. So the things that are inside of it. All right, hang on to that. And when the living creatures were lifted up from the earth, the wheels were lifted up. Whitherso the Spirit was to go. And when they went, Whitherso the Spirit was to go, they went. Thither was their spirit to go. And the wheels were lifted up over against them. Now listen to this. For the spirit of the living creature, the cherubim, the one that looks like burning coals of fire, in the form of a man, for the spirit of the living creature was in the wheels. In it. It's internal. He's sitting there looking in it. He's describing what he's seeing. He's saying he sees these cherubims in there. They're the ones with the four faces. They're the ones that are making this bad thing work. Okay? Now that was one time to preach it. Listen to what the next to verse 21. When those went, these went, and when those stood, these stood. And when those were lifted up from the earth, the wheels were lifted up over against them, for the spirit of the living creature was in the wheel. Twice for emphasis. In a row. Right. Well, what's that mean? That means, well, when the wheels took off, the things that were in it went with it. Just like you in an airplane. Alright, same thing. Exactly the same thing. You're in the plane. When the plane is lifted up, you're lifted up. If the plane turns right, you turn right. Alright, same thing. Ezekiel's doing a real good job. Alright? Verse 22. And the likeness of the firmament upon their head, and the living creature was as the color of a terrible crystal stretched forth over their heads above. That's a whole other set of information for another time. Okay, the firmaments. But we'll get to that eventually. All right, verse 23, and under the firmament were their wings straight, every one toward the other. Every one had two which covered on this side, and every one had two which covered on that side their bodies. And when they went, I heard the noise of their wings. All right, Ezekiel only knows one way for something to fly, and that's with wings. Okay, he's trying to describe it. It's flying, it's in the air. But what words does he not use? He doesn't use words like flapping, feather, nothing like that, because none of those were present. But nonetheless, he's described the wings for you. All right? Now listen to what he says. Verse 24, and when they went, I heard the voice of their wings like the noise of great waters. Buddy, that's a roar. That's a roar. You ever stand by a real waterfall? You feel that rumble on the inside of your body. Okay? Okay? A great noise. And this is also a perfect description for the same noise you hear in the book of Ezekiel, or excuse me, in the book of Revelation. All right? With those spiritual horses again. The spiritual horses of fire. All right. Let's see, the noise, and as the voice of Almighty, and the voice of speech, and the noise of an host, and when they stood and let down their wings, when the bird lets down his wings, what's it done? Landed on those feet that look like a calf's foot, that don't have joints because it doesn't walk, because it flies. All right, oh, hold on, I messed up. I pushed the wrong button, buddy. Let me tell you. Where were we? Somebody tell me. Oh, there we go, 24, yeah. 25, actually. And there was a voice from the firmament, which was over their heads. All right. And when they stood, they let down their wings. Verse 26, and above the firmament that was over their heads was the likeness of a throne, as the appearance of a sapphire stone. Upon the was the likeness of the throne, was the likeness of the appearance of the man above it. Boy, that's hard to say. Okay, let me just translate that into Pete speak. Okay. And he looks up and he sees the throne and he sees the man, a vision of a man above the throne. That's all he's saying. All right. Now look, this is God's throne. So this thing that's in this wheel that goes about its work on its side that's so tall Ezekiel doesn't want to touch. Our Father doesn't need a vehicle to go anywhere. All right, he can just appear wherever he needs to, whatever time he needs to. But buddy, what about his throne though? Because that's what you're being shown in this thing. Is the throne of God itself, and it's there in Ezekiel's wheel. Okay, and it's important to note that the third figure is not sitting on the throne, it's above the throne. It's not actually upon its seat. I think this is a vision of Christ is what you're actually seeing. And that's why it's distincted from the throne and is above it. That's just my opinion, okay? But nonetheless. Verse 27, and I saw the color of amber, which we've talked about. I saw with my eye something metallic. As the appearance of fire round about within it, with the appearance of his loins even upward, and from the appearance of his loins even downward, I saw, as it were, of fire, and it had brightness round about it. And as the appearance of the bow that is in the cloud of the day of rain, so was the appearance of the brightness round about it. Chapter 19, what you want in the book of Revelation. All right. This was the appearance of the likeness of the glory of the Lord, and when I saw it, I fell upon my face, and I heard the voice of one that spoke. That's the rest of the prophecy of Ezekiel then, at that point. Okay. So there you have that little infamous, that's all of chapter 1 of Ezekiel. All right. And this chapter causes more consternation against the brethren. Because you come up here and you start talking about stuff like this in a lot of churches and they'll hit the roof. You do losers, never loving mind. All right. But I don't care. That's why I do what I do it here. I do it over where other places I teach in my little Bible study, just so I can teach stuff like this to people. Because I think it's very valid. Right? And the idea that we were supposed to think about our Father and think of it in terms of the ancient kingdom, I think is kind of just the wrong direction. Right? And spiritual technology is a part of that realm. Between the flying cities, the New Jerusalem, between Ezekiel's wheels, the cherubims, all these things indicate a type of technology that flesh man can't conceive of. Right? With power sources that enable the 1,500-mile cube to fly through the air. I don't know what powers that, but if you can give me some idea, I'd like to know. But nonetheless, it says it right there in the Word of God. And you guys, you know it's going to go down just like it says it. All right?
Well, you think, like I said, you said it all. It's like their period of time. He described it as their period of time.
Yeah, he's doing
That's
everything he
the
can.
best technology.
Yeah, right. He had no idea. But imagine how, if Ezekiel lived today, imagine what his report would be like. Yeah, it'd be a lot
There it goes.
different. Right. Right. He would have other words. He would have heard things. Now, how does this all relate to you, to me, and to our religion? Well, if you pay attention to what's going on around there, everything right now is UFOs thinking crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, absolutely, you say UFO crazy. You got these people, this comes with a warning too. This subject comes with a warning. It's like the Great Pyramids. All right? It's great to understand it, but do not make a new religion out of it. Do not. If you think that if you think that the New Jerusalem is anything other than a place to live, or Ezekiel's will anything other than a glorified car, then you're taking it too far. All right? Because this is nothing but a car. This is like having a 55 Ford. Well, whenever it was made. Yeah, a little fancy, right?
Whoa.
Well, all I know is if I got one of these things, it's going to leak oil. I know it. I know the way I do things. I'll have a flat tire. It's going to leak oil. Window won't roll up. Something. All right. All right, but that's all I got for you guys tonight. Anybody got any questions? It
I
should
want
be
to
a
see
couple.
something different like that.
Yeah, me too.
So
Me
you're saying
too.
it had hooves like a cow?
No, that's how he's describing
That's
it.
how
in his
he
mind.
described it.
He's just saying it's round.
Yeah, he didn't know how
And
to describe it.
It doesn't have a
Pretty
joint.
much it was just.
Yeah, just
laying.
land on it. Right.
Yeah, like land.
Sit down. Right. Right.
Like a NASA.
That's how come he doesn't
Challenger
use.
effect?
He doesn't walk. It doesn't have a jointed leg. It's
Comes
just
from the
straight
sky.
foot. Right. And just sits
So
down.
he,
Yeah, I mean, think about this. I mean, that's technology on a level that we can't even
well, have you
conceive
seen
of.
that new satellite form? Was months ago. I seen this thing that looks like a centipede.
Oh, going through that, yeah, it's a Starlink. It's
Dude, I freaked
it's
I ain't
Starlink.
talking. I'm talking-
Starlink's getting reported as all kind of UFOs,
Yeah,
and
I'm
it's
thinking,
just
I'm
yeah.
on drugs, right? And I'm like, what? Hey, did you see that? What is that?
It was real,
it's
man.
Like, I don't know. It's like, and I was like, oh my god, what is that?
Anybody got any questions about anything? Just this or anything now in general? Everybody good? All right. You guys have a good night then.
You know, I remember describing that as like, it looks like a centipede in the sky.
Yeah, and it's
Same-
Starlink.
same difference. I didn't even know they had anything like that out.
Oh, Starlink's not the only one.
Oh,